3, 4.
We get live right now, man. It's going down. Excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, you know, we got a couple wins.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Deer Diaries, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast brought to you by us here at the staff of Brew Hoop. I'm soloing this time after Van was with me last week. But that's okay. We're still going to have a lot of fun this week on this episode as our Bucks season preview series continues, as we're going to have Eric Balkman on the show with us today. He is a radio host at the show, or he hosts the show on The Score in Appleton at 95.3, in Appleton 99.1 in Oshkosh. Eric, welcome back to Deer Diaries.
Yeah, this is a pleasure. Excited to talk some Milwaukee Bucks basketball. We're just less than 2 weeks until the start of the season. It seems like I feel like we've been waiting for a while, but it also seems like the season just ended. You know, like the Lillard season is complete. We're on to Myles Turner. Hopefully, bigger and better things ahead for the Bucks this year.
Yeah, did you get a chance to watch any of those preseason games so far against Miami and Detroit?
I did not. I read up on them. I looked at the box scores after the game. It's tough to kind of figure out, you know, like what preseason means as far as like what's meaningful, what's not meaningful as we head into the regular season. 2 wins, I mean, that's got to be good, right? Better than losing. So, but no, I didn't get really a chance to watch. The regular season is the first game's on Philadelphia. Is that who they? Or no, it's Washington,
No.
right?
Yep, it's the Chris
Washington.
Middleton return game.
Right, exactly, which is going to be fun, going to be exciting. I think I speak for all of us when we still miss, you know, prime era Chris Middleton. You know, what he was towards the end was not great, but man, I still 2021 just seems like it just happened where Middleton was knocking down those big buckets against the Suns in the finals, and hopefully they can get back there at some point.
Yeah, obviously when Van was here before we started, he said I'm a Cubs fan, but obviously I'm a Bulls fan, apathetic Bulls fan at this point. But I always appreciated Chris Middleton, and the last few years being on the covering the team and then seeing him leave was tough, because I know what those kind of players mean, and it's hard to see them go. So, but it'll be nice because this is the first time he'll be back in Milwaukee too, because they only played in Washington after the trade deadline. So it should be interesting. Speaking of which, since we've been talking a lot about opening night already, the first question is actually, who is your opening night starting lineup, and who would you like to see in a playoff closing lineup?
That's a good question. So obviously the front line is Antetokounmpo and Brook Lopez, obviously at center. That's who we want there. And then I think it's point guard's kind of an interesting situation. Kevin Porter, I think, is obviously the guy that you want. I don't know, Jackson, about you. I was really surprised that they were able to sign him. I thought he was going to be paid a lot more by somebody else this year, but I was excited to see this offseason. I was excited to see him come back. So I think here's your slam dunk. And I also think he was punching a little bit above his weight last year. I don't think we're going to see, you know, the way that, you know, the triple double and everything. And I don't think we're going to see that type of play from him this season. I think it'll be close. But 80 to 90% of that is still really awesome. So then it comes down to the 2 and the 3, right? With Trent and Kuzma and AJ Green. And I kind of go back and forth on this, and maybe Doc Rivers will do this as well. Maybe it'll be matchup based, depending upon, you know, who they're playing and who the other team is throwing out there. I think Trent's got to be out there as far as one of those 3 goes. And then, you know, it's kind of like what you need. If you need more size, if you need more athleticism out on the court, it's probably Kuzma. But if you need some shooting and you need some scoring, it's probably AJ Green that's going to be out there. I think ultimately, and I think that goes for the closing too. I don't really envision any lineups. Maybe rarely we'll see Portis, Antetokounmpo, and Turner all out there, which is fun, but I don't know if it's necessarily conducive to winning basketball games. And I think the closing 5 will be similar to what I'm saying with the starting 5. I think it's Porter, Trent, Antetokounmpo, Turner, And then depending upon what you need, or the best way to exploit the other team, whatever their weakness is, maybe it's Kuzma and maybe it's Green. If I have to pick one, I'll probably say Green because I'm excited to see what he can do as a full-time starting shooting guard / small forward with Antetokounmpo out there spacing the court. And you also have, and I think this goes underrated too. Like, I think a lot of the stuff that Myles Turner does well was a lot of the things that Brook Lopez did well. And I'm excited to get a quicker, younger version of Lopez back hanging out playing next to Antetokounmpo. And I think that Turner and Portis can complement each other as well. If there's lineups out there with an Antetokounmpo is on the bench and you have Portis and Turner out there, I think that'd be fun as well.
Yeah, and actually with no Giannis, because I was at the game on Thursday against Detroit, the Kuz was out with a hip injury, and then obviously no Giannis while he's still recovering from COVID. They actually started with Bobby next to Myles. It was interesting to watch, to say the least, because Bobby was doing like his normal Bobby stuff, or like they'd swing it to like Green or Trent on the wing, and then they do a bounce pass into the low post, and then Bobby does his like mid-range fading shot all the time. But I asked Bobby about it when, like, oh, what was it like? He's like, he's really excited. And he said he didn't even realize like how much Myles communicates like on the defensive end and how important that's going to be to for them to win, and like how important it is to get up the young guys up to speed in terms of bringing that winning culture. And I just think too, I think when I first brought mine out, I had AJ Green both in the closing and the starting. And I think tonight, because as we're recording this, they're playing the Bulls tonight for their third preseason game. This will be telling if with Giannis and potentially Kuz healthy, who does Doc roll with at that small forward? I think whoever starts at small forward tonight against the Bulls is probably who's going to end up starting on October 22nd against the Wizards.
The other thing, and I don't know the answer to this question. One of the things that Brook Lopez did so well was he oftentimes would box out or screen out the other team's best rebounder or best, big man or whatever. And he let the other guys, Portis and Antetokounmpo and Kuzma and all these other guys, he let them scrape up the rebounds. And I wonder if that's the case with Turner as well, where he does, more of the dirty work and let, Antetokounmpo and Portis and collect the rebounds and the counting stats. I wonder how that's going to work this year. Or maybe, if he doesn't, maybe that's even better. I mean, I don't know. The thing I think and this is college basketball, pro basketball right now, versatility is so key. Where we've seen the Bucks be exposed in the playoffs several years on screen and rolls where they just did not either have the foot speed or they did not have the size to match up. And now I think with Turner, it's such an upgrade from a flexibility and a versatility standpoint as well. And maybe we talk about it enough, maybe we don't mention it enough, but I think that's something that is going to make the Bucks even harder to defend this year and harder to score against. So that's something that we'll definitely be watching for. I think that just in general, that getting a guy like Myles Turner next to Antetokounmpo, this is not the level of excitement when we were like, oh God, what's it going to be like when Lillard and Antetokounmpo are out there together? But there is something to that. Like, God, this is going to be awesome seeing how these two versatile long wing or long rim protectors operate in concert with each other out there.
Yeah, that'll lead into the next question. But I just wanted to say that, like, when I obviously, because just to give you a timeline, I was on vacation during like NBA free agency. So the first thing I saw was, I didn't even see that we got Myles Turner. I saw that Dame was cut. That was the first thing I saw. So I'm like, wait, they cut Dame? Why would they do this? Wait, Myles Turner's on the Bucks?
Right. And it was the opposite for me, where I saw that they had signed Turner. And I'm like, I don't know where this money is coming from, but this is going to be great in 2026, 2027, when you have Lillard back with Turner and Antetokounmpo. God only knows what else they're going to put together over the course of the next year. And then I found out oh, actually, they needed to waive Lillard to make sure they had the money to sign Turner. I'm like, oh, so apparently money doesn't grow on trees, and the salary cap is a real thing in the NBA.
Yeah, because Myles got somewhere in the realm of 30 million per year, essentially. And obviously that would have to start with Kuz, but then you have to throw somebody else onto the pile and like a sign and trade. So I think if that was the case, they probably did the best they could. But when I started thinking about like what this would mean for them and how it would look, it's like, yeah, I agree with you. It's basically in some ways, it's a younger, more athletic Brook Lopez. And he has drove me nuts is like the amount. Obviously, they had to play drop coverage with Brook Lopez. That's just how it was. Even in the later stages of his prime during 2020, 2021, 2022, like that's just what it was. But with Turner, he can be more aggressive because he has the length and the quickness to recover a lot faster, and he can reasonably stay on guards on the perimeter, and you're not in a totally vulnerable situation with that either. So that the defensive side, I was honestly more excited about than the offensive side when looking at this.
I think the other thing too that we need to keep in mind, the other similarity that these two guys have in common was the addition of being a consistent 3-point shooter, something that Lopez needed to add on to the second half of his career. Otherwise, he was just going to be left behind as this dinosaur center that can't stretch the floor. And I think Myles Turner, while like, you know, he was never really a bad 3-point shooter, but you're seeing consistently he's shooting more over the course of the last, 5-6 years or whatever. He's shooting more threes, and he's hitting them at 33, 35, whatever it is % clip. So that's another thing too, that Turner is not just some, athletic freak type, shot blocker, rim runner, dunker, whatever. This guy can stretch the floor like Lopez could too. And again, you pay through it's not my money, so what do I care? But the Bucks did pay through the nose to try to acquire basically a younger, quicker version of Brook Lopez. And I don't know. I've read differing stuff on this, that the Bucks, Horst did not consult Antetokounmpo before he made this Myles Turner signing. I've also heard that Turner and Antetokounmpo have talked previously about wanting to play together someday. So I don't really know where that falls in on it too. But it seems like, and Myles Turner is really if Bobby Portis is the mayor of Milwaukee, Myles Turner's got to be the treasurer or something like that. The way he's adapted himself into the city of Milwaukee lifestyle. It seems like he's a big Brewers guy. He's been at Packers games, so that's been very, very, very cool to see Myles Turner really embrace the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah. Did you see, I'm assuming you saw that post where he first basically had the Wisconsin smorgasbord where he had pretzels, I think like bratwurst. He had like this full course. I think he had like a cheese curds. He posted it on his Twitter and X, like just a full smorgasbord of Wisconsin food.
I'm trying to find it right now.
Yeah, it was the funniest thing. But yeah, no, as much as we talked about, I'm not obviously the biggest fan of Wisconsin sports teams for very obvious reasons. But no, I think getting a guy like that who, in terms of culture building, like immediately is like, I'm going to do everything I can to like show that I love being here. And right. Not as a PR stunt trying to like, but he really seems to be enjoying Milwaukee, which I think is great for him. And I'm excited to see how that all turns out.
I got it right now. Jackson, I'm seeing it now.
Okay.
An explosion of carbs and fat, which quite frankly, that's what we live off of here in Wisconsin. He's at the Milwaukee Broad House, and he's got, I don't know, like 4 sausages in front of him with the pretzel bun for the brats, mustard, a huge pile of fried cheese curds. I'm assuming that's a ranch cup next to it. And then a massive, really thick Bavarian pretzel with the stone ground mustard. And then I'm assuming like some kind of spicy beer mustard and then like nacho cheese with it as well. And it says, "Welcome to Wisconsin" meal, extra conditioning on Monday. And he also said, quote, boys wasn't lying about them cheese curds. Who's ever been? I've never known anybody to come to Wisconsin and try a fried cheese curd, and be like, oh God, I'm really disappointed. I tried that. Everybody loves them.
Yeah,
they're delicious.
It's deep fried cheese. You can't go wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. Italians have been doing this for hundreds of years, so we've just perfected it here in Wisconsin.
Those are my people, man. For Sicily.
Yep. Well, and what's the thing in St. Louis always brags. I think about the toasted ravioli. Isn't that a big thing in St. Louis? I want to say it is. I could be wrong on that.
I'll take your word for it. I'm not familiar outside of barbecue. I'm not familiar with like St. Louis and like Missouri cuisine.
Yeah, I just heard that, and I've never had it. I've just heard like people. I'm like, it's basically cheese curd. It's not like you reinvented the wheel here. So I don't know if we got off on this tangent. But.
Hey, we're here to have fun too, man. We're vibing right now. We kind of got into it a little bit, but I just wanted to make sure we fully touched on it. Just like with the nucleus around this team, just how do you want to see like Myles Turner involved on both ends of the floor?
I think if Milwaukee, one of the things I have read and I did notice people talking about after these 2 preseason games, especially the second one, was how the ball is moving, right? And Antetokounmpo, I mean, how many times have we heard him say for years and years, in his post-game pressers, he's always like, sometimes a shot goes in, sometimes they don't, but sometimes it doesn't go in. But as long as we keep the ball moving, as long as, we are stressing the defense and making sure that, we're not falling into a black hole of stagnant offense, then it's going to often end up more times not good. Right. And I feel like with Turner, if the Bucks offense is going the way it should, I feel like he's just going to naturally get involved. I don't think you necessarily have to game plan to get him involved. He comes from an Indiana team where he was never the first option, at least as far as back as I can remember. So he's used to, just second chance opportunities. He'll hit the open shot. He's not afraid to knock down or not afraid to take the open shot on offense. I think the guy that you have to make sure touches the ball every single possession is Antetokounmpo, and let it flow through him. Turner's going to get his, Green's going to get his, Porter, obviously, he's been a great player when it comes to, getting to the rim on drives, and that's going to set up the Bucks for a lot. So I'd like to see him, take 2, 3, 4 3-pointers a game. Because I think that makes your offense better when he's knocking those down, and at least having the threat of having to go out and defend him, because that's going to open up stuff for Antetokounmpo and Portis inside. And other than that, like, he's the type of player that is a professional. Like, they always say that about Kevin Durant, or at least Kevin Durant says this about Kevin Durant. Like, I can play with anyone because it's a seamless fit. He knows ball and he knows how to fit in. And I think that's the thing with Turner too. He's been in the league for several years. He knows how this thing works. He knows when he's got to take his shot. He knows when he's got to pass the ball and set up his teammates. So I think that if we ever come to a point where we as fans or reporters or analysts or whatever, we're saying, boy, they really need to get Turner more involved. I think that becomes more of a problem with the entire offense as a whole, and not just the Turner problem. So he's going to get his, and I have no doubt that the Bucks will use him after all the money that Jimmy Haslam and everybody is paying him right now.
Yeah, I think Doc talked on Media Day about using him a lot on the elbow, not just as like a scorer, but as a passer too. So I think that'll be really interesting to see how they implement that. I'm a big stats guy. I love looking at stats, and so I just want to take a look at his stats the last few years. Ever since 2019, he's taken at least 4 threes a game. Last year was the first year he took over 5. He took 5.5 per game. Shot a career best 39% from 3. And I was just taking like a little of a history dive too. Like, and you just said he's like never been the number one option, because when he first got to Indy, it was Paul George. And then shortly after Paul George, it was Oladipo and Sabonis. And then it's been transitioned to Tyrese Halliburton and all of them now. So yeah, I think he perfectly slots in as that second offensive option and just fits everything and he's just, like you said, seamless. He could play on every other single team in the league. He's that type of player.
It's weird, and I agree. He is the second option. How many other teams in the NBA have their top two offensive threats as their top two big men? Right? It's rare. There's not a whole lot of teams out there like that. The Bucks frankly, might be the only team. I don't know, but I don't think that's sustainable. I think somebody's going to have to step up on the perimeter, not necessarily from being like their second best player, but I think this team will be better if your secondary scorer is more of like a Chris Middleton type, rather than having like the two bangers on the inside be averaging, 30 and 20 points a game or whatever. I just think that you need more of a threat from maybe that's Kevin Porter. Maybe it's AJ Green. I don't think it's Kyle Kuzma, but there's a non-zero chance of anything. And maybe it's different game to game. Maybe Cole Anthony gets hot and all of a sudden he scores 20 points some game to go with the Antetokounmpo, or maybe AJ Green is knocking down threes. Guy who's knocking down a bunch of them the other day. Maybe he hits 6 or 7 threes. So I feel like maybe long term it's fine if Turner, when you look at the aggregation of the season, it's fine if those were your top two scoring threats. But I think as far as just like X's and O's go for basketball, you're going to have a perimeter threat, and it could be a different guy every night, but you're going to have that to complement Antetokounmpo properly and really unlock everything he's able to do.
Yeah, and we'll see who that ends up being. Maybe instead of AJ Green threes, it'll be AJ Green backdoor lobs. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. I'm here for it, man. I'm here for it.
Did you see that video? Did you see, because they released the practice footage of him throwing down that lob?
There was, I think there's this recurring, isn't it a recurring joke that Green has never dunked in a game, in an NBA game? And I didn't know this was a thing until like halfway through last season, and he had like a breakaway. And he didn't dunk it. He like laid it in, and they're just giving him all this, kind of grief about it. And so then I'm starting to wonder, I'm like, he's a tall man. He plays in a professional sports league that probably has the best athletes in the world. I think he can dunk, but I don't know. Now we have proof. Allegedly. I mean, AI, we don't like, I don't know what like if AI got a hold of this or anything, but I didn't see it with my own eyes. There's just a video out there. So.
We'll see. I think he's like the second or third tallest player in the league who hasn't dunked yet. Cause I think, not Allen Houston, Caleb Houston. It's like 6'6" and he hasn't dunked in a game yet. So
it's wild. It's wild to think about that, but
yeah. All right. On to the next. We talked a lot about Giannis and about what his fit with Myles Turner be, but let's be a little bit more Giannis centric, because that's what this team is going to be for the most part. Predict his stat line. So points, assists, rebounds, stocks, blocks, and steals per game, and what a range of what you think his usage rate would be.
All right. God. All right. So I'm looking at last year. He averaged 30.4 points last year. I'm going to say he is more in I bet he's between 31 and 32. I think he scores more this year. But I also don't think he goes nuclear. So between 31 and 32, average 11.9 rebounds last year. Let's knock that down a little bit to maybe like 10.5, somewhere around there. Maybe that might be too aggressive. Maybe like 10.9, something like that. Assists, he was at 6.5 last year. I'm going to say that's more in the low 7s this year, because he'll probably have to be more of a facilitator. Blocks is going to be interesting, because I feel like he gets more of that help side stuff this year with Myles Turner in there. So I'm going to say he's more like to like 1.6, 1.7 blocks this year. Steals, he was 0.9 last year. I'll keep him right there at 1. And he averaged 3 turnovers a game last year. I think that goes up this year as well. I think he's more closer to 4, or maybe just over 4 this year, just because I think he's going to be more of a facilitator. He's going to have to be more of a facilitator with no Lillard, with apologies to, Ryan Rollins and Cole Anthony and Kevin Porter. I've seen Damian Lillard. I've worked with Damian Lillard. They are not Damian Lillard. So who said that? Was that Lloyd Benson back in the day? I'm dating myself a little bit here. In like the 1980s vice presidential debate or something. I can't remember exactly, but that's what I would, to bring it back. That's what I would say with Antetokounmpo. I think by and large, mostly the stats do go up this year slightly out of necessity, quite frankly.
Yeah. I was a little bit more bold with mine. I think I said, when I initially said it like a few months ago, I think I said he was going to average like 33 to 34. I think he takes that big of a jump, somewhere similar in the rebounding. And then I think there are going to be stretches where he's just going to like average a triple double through the season. And I think there'll be long stretches. And I think that'll be enough where I don't know if he averages a triple double for a season, but I think he gets damn close. So somewhere like 8.5 to like 9.5 assists per game. And I always bring this up for context for the usage rate.
He would never, I mean, like, I just want to throw cold water on this right now. He would not average a triple double this year, right? I mean, he'll have a few, but he's not in that Westbrook territory, even though, I mean, you asked me about usage rate too. I forgot about that part. Yeah. He had 34.9 last year. I think he's closer to his career high. The 2022-2023 season, he was at 38.5. I think it's right around 38.5 again this year.
Yeah, I think it's good. And I was actually just going to bring that up because the context I always bring to it when it comes to usage rate, just to see how extreme it can get. James Harden, I think the year after he won MVP, I think that 2019 season, his usage rate was over 40%. And I think the year before was like that 38 to 39.
It was okay. So I got it right in front of me. In 18-19, 40.3 for Harden. The year before that, it was 35.9. And then the year after it, he went back down to 36. And now he's never touched 30 since then. So,
yeah. So I'm like, and we talked about this. Van and I talked about this with Jim Paschke when we had him on. Like he said that basically, like, and I kind of agree that it's not going to be a good thing if his usage rate is that high. Like, not only just like the natural wear and tear, but like in terms of how the offense is running. I think for them to have a successful season, it's going to be like 33 to 36%. I think that's kind of the range you have to look for, because that means like one of those 3 guards or like somebody else emerged to be able to like handle some of the offense. And Doc is like glowed about Cole Anthony being able to like run the team when they play with him and Ryan Rollins. We'll see if that translates with Giannis is on the floor, but I think there is a danger with having that high of a usage rate.
I don't know if you realize this. You probably do because you're smarter than me. But Cole Anthony is just turned 25. I feel like he's been in the league for a while, and he just 25 in May, which is kind of cool because you think about him like, oh, he's like this, Jeff Teague campaign type guy, coming off the bench. He's really not. He's a different type of player, and his best basketball is definitely in front of him.
Yeah, this is year 6 for him already. He started at age 20 in his rookie year. So, well, that's crazy. We're the same. I'm the same age as Cole Anthony. That's great.
Yeah. One of between you two, I think Anthony is probably going to have a higher usage rate for the Bucks this year. But you'll have a higher usage rate. So I guess that's feather in your cap there. To your point about Antetokounmpo, I think you're right. I think like, we as fans, we look at this from the standpoint of like, well, who's the best player on the Bucks? Antetokounmpo, let's make sure we get him the ball as much as we possibly can. And I do stand by that when he's on the court, like every possession should go through him, ideally. To your point, you cannot operate that way over the course of an 82-game season. He's not superhuman, although sometimes he appears that he is. But he's now at 30, age 30. It just seemed like yesterday that everybody was saying Antetokounmpo was he's still scraping the surface of his greatness. And now all of a sudden, they win a title and now have been bounced in the first round in 3 straight years, and he's 30. Might have some gray in his hair now, for all I know. I don't know. But with Antetokounmpo, you not only need to keep him fresh or as fresh as possible for the postseason to make sure you don't get bounced in the first round. And how do you do that? You have to have guys step up during the regular season. He can't be on the court all the time. So you're going to have players like Turner, like Trent, like Kuzma, like AJ Green, these Kevin Porter. You have to learn how to be successful without him on the court just for his own sake. So he is not having a broken back in April from carrying the team for 6 months or 5 months or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's basically the way it is going to have to go. And that honestly transitions very well into my next question of not necessarily of those guys that you listed, but just in general, which Buck do you think will make a tangible more significant impact on the team versus what they did a year ago?
It's a good question. And I think the obvious answer would be Kuzma, because the bar is so low for him that he almost has to be. I mean, I've heard
and can step over the bar.
Right. Yeah. I think that I've heard so many people last season, and I was one of them, because I feel like when everybody is zigging, I'm trying to zag. And so many people were piling on with Kuzma last year. And I mentioned, this is not everybody can just step right in and ball with Antetokounmpo and Lillard right away. That's not an easy thing to do. He was dealing with, I think, an injury, a couple of different injuries, if I remember, down the stretch last season. He was getting unlucky with his shots. I feel like he was so bad shooting last year, and it was not in line with his career, like what type of 3-point shooter he had been, and just regular spot shooter. It didn't really reflect. So I feel like there's a lot going against Kuzma last year. I could be wrong on this, and we could start the season and get 10 games in, and Kuzma's still doing what he did last year, and I'm like, okay, mea culpa. I was wrong. I think he's the guy that I think makes the biggest leap. It would be nice to see Gary Trent be a little bit more consistent, because you think about that. What game was that in the playoffs against the Pacers where he had like 30-some points?
Those game 3.
And it just seems so effortless. And I'm like, God, why can't this guy do this I'm not saying he's got to score 30 every game.
Right.
But there were games where he just completely disappeared, and I didn't understand that. Defensively too. So it'd be nice to see him be more consistent. Kevin Porter, I said at the top, I think that this is a player who really, we saw the best of him last year. And I don't know how much further he can go forward. I think that was reflected in the contract that he got, that nobody else in the NBA was willing to give him more than that. So I think that maybe I have to rein in my expectations on Porter this year as well. AJ Green, I think it'll be fun to see him get, and I know he was kind of getting consistent minutes second half of last season, but it'll be fun to see what he does with a full season, at a minimum being like the the first or second guy off the bench, and maybe at the top being an every night starter for the Bucks too. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. I think there's definitely a possibility that he might be the breakout player of this season, but I think it's got to be Kuzma, for many reasons. And it's weird too to have, if it is Kuzma that takes this big leap forward, it's going to be weird to see essentially the top 3 players be like your front line essentially. And how does that work, chemistry wise? I don't know if it does work consistently over the course of the season, but ain't nowhere to go but up for Kuzma right now. And I do think he will. I'm giving him a pass, and maybe that's a mistake, but I'm giving him a pass for last season.
Yeah, and obviously I I will admit I was on that bandwagon of being like maybe a tad too harsh on Kuzma. For me, it wasn't even like the 3-point shots not going in, because everyone's going to miss 3-point shots. And sometimes you're in a rut and adjusting to a new environment, moving all your stuff, that can be difficult. So the thing for me is like the drives to the rim he would have. He throws his body like so out of control sometimes just to get the shot up, where it's just like, if he like calmed down, and I think I forgot who said this. I think Van said this, like, he's just doing too much. That was the biggest thing. He was essentially trying to replace Chris Middleton, where it's just like, we don't need you to replace Chris Middleton. We just need you to be athletic enough to keep guys in front of you, score some baskets, awesome cuts, because he's a great cutter. That was one of the main positives. And then like hit your threes. And I think he was just trying to like take off the dribble too much. And I remember one game specifically where the Bucks played the Nuggets in Denver. He was just awful. I had like one of the worst performances I've ever seen.
That thin air, man, it affects people differently. I'll say this about Kuzma too, and I bring this up with baseball. I think it's true somewhat in football. Baseball, I think it's most true, and it's definitely true in the NBA too. Sometimes I feel like when these guys sign these big contracts, especially in the NBA where the money has just ballooned way up from where it was, 10, 15 years ago. Sometimes, and then when these guys when they're not meeting the new expectations you have with, we're paying, they're paying this guy this much, he needs to be crushing it. Sometimes I think that's the mentality of the player too. They're paying me this much, I need to be crushing it. And then you start pressing. And then when you start pressing, you're not playing your game. And when you're not playing your game, you're not doing what you were signed to do. The stuff that earned you that contract, you're no longer doing. I think that is probably in play with Kuzma last season too. He knows, and I'm sure that they've had conversations that, Doc Rivers, Antetokounmpo, Lillard, whoever, they probably told him like, look, man, you're not replacing Middleton. We don't need you to be what Chris Middleton was. We need you to be what Kyle Kuzma is. And I think that's fine to hear that and to know that. But I still think subconsciously, you think about like, well, I was the main piece in this Middleton trade. I need to be doing more. I need to be doing better. And then he hears people ragging on him and giving him grief. Like, this was a huge trade bust. I can't believe the Bucks gave up Middleton for Kuzma, and this is the kind of output. And then that makes you even go harder and press more. And it's just like, it's like quicksand, like what Keanu Reeves said in The Replacements, where just like the harder you fight, the more likely you are to never get out. And hopefully with offseason, clear your mind, kind of reset. You and I have talked about it. The expectations for Kuzma are almost non-existent at this point. He's going to do what he does, and hopefully he bounces back. But I don't think there's any reason he needs to be putting any more pressure on himself this year, because it's not there. Pressure is going to be on Antetokounmpo. Pressure is going to be on Porter and Turner. These guys that they counted on who were doing stuff at the end of last season and in the postseason. But there's not going to be a whole lot of pressure on Kyle Kuzma, and hopefully that frees him up to become the player that we've seen him be for the Lakers and for the Wizards.
Yeah, and actually, I was just thinking about when you said it's a couple of times about KPJ, where you were surprised that like more teams didn't give him like more money, and this just no inside information. I would guess there might have been teams that were willing to offer him more money. I just think that he realized that this was going to be probably the only team that he was going to get a starting role with and win. I think that was probably more of his calculus and the nice thing is that after this season, the Bucks will have his bird rights. They can basically give him almost anything he wants after that. So I think that's definitely
if it doesn't go swimmingly for Porter, I think, don't quote me on this, I think he has a player option for not this season, but next season, obviously. And then he can enter free agency at like age 27 or whatever, like when he's still got really good basketball in front of him, and he can get his bag then too. This might be setting him up with a really good season, and maybe he's the point guard with Antetokounmpo for that kind of eases Antetokounmpo into the second half of his career. I don't know, but I think there's a lot of possibilities with Porter. I don't know. Maybe he just didn't get more money elsewhere. And it's weird to see what he did at the end of last season. And then he signs I don't know what it was, 2 years, like 10 or 11 million, a contract. It's wild. And I said the same thing with Trent. I didn't think they'd get him the first time. I was surprised they got him the second time. And that's worked out well, too. So maybe it's just being able to play with the big feta, with the Greek freak. That's something that a lot of people, a lot of players would like to do. So.
Yeah. And you were right. He does have a player option for the 26th season for basically 5.4 million. Am I crazy? I've never heard anyone call Giannis the big feta. I've never heard that.
So the etymology of that. So my show on the Score, I used to have a co-host with it, Leo Kuiper Jr., and he is buddies with Eddie Doucette, who used to be the old play-by-play announcer for the Bucks back in the day when it was Abdul Jabbar and Robertson and all those guys. Mm-hmm. And we had him on the show one time, and we were asking about Antetokounmpo, and he just off the cuff said he called him the big feta, and I'm like, well, that makes it's because you got to have some sort of cheese aspect to it because he's in Wisconsin, and he's huge, and Eddie Doucette called him the big feta, and we've dubbed every time we refer to him on the show now, we always call him the big feta. Sometimes people don't know who the hell we're talking about, but then it takes like a second or two and they put it together. I'm like, oh yeah, the big feta. That makes sense. So there you go. That's the story of the big feta.
I'm going to have to use that in a recap after a game at some point. I may even put that in the head.
Jackson. We got to get this out there. Let's go worldwide with the big feta. When we want people on NBC when the Bucks are on national TV after he has a thunderous dunk, the big feta sends it down. That will be like the crowning achievement in my life, and Eddie will be watching somewhere smiling, which is awesome.
Oh my God! All right, if he has a bit, I can't fully guarantee this, but if Giannis has a big game against the Wizards, expect big feta in the headline.
There you go. Love it. Absolutely.
All right. We've talked a lot about these guys, these four guys in particular, that being Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green, and Kyle Kuzma. I would like you to rank them from 1 to 4, 1 being the most important, 4 being the least important, for the Bucks this season, 1 through 4.
And you're talking about Porter, Trent, Kuzma, and Green?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to put Porter first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put I think I'm going to put Trent second. And then I'm going to I think if I was to tier him out, Porter's on a tier by himself. The next tier below is Trent and then AJ Green. Very, very close between those two. I'm going to put Trent ahead of AJ Green just slightly, and then I'll put Kuzma on the next tier down after that. Kind of what I alluded to earlier. We saw this team play really well when Kuzma was not playing well last year. So I don't know how integral he is in the Bucks winning games this year. Certainly they're going to count on him, and they're going to need him at certain points of the season. But AJ Green's 3-point shooting, and if he can take another step forward, he showed flashes on the defensive end last year. So if he becomes like a true 3-and-D guy, which right now he's got the 3 part down, the D still needs a little work, which, God, that's going to sound horrible if anybody is just listening to that portion of the podcast. There was a time last year, I want to say like December or January, where he was locking up guys, like good perimeter players on opposing teams. And then I don't know what happened. I don't know if there was film or tape or somehow he got exposed, and then he just couldn't stop fouling. And you cannot, with the way he stretches the floor and how integral 3-point shooting is in general, but especially for the Bucks, you cannot get in foul trouble if you're AJ Green this year. So maybe I actually would put him ahead of Trent. But ask me tomorrow, I might put Trent ahead of Green because it's that close. Trent's the type of guy that you need him defensively night in and night out for sure. But his offense is going to carry the team, as we saw against the Pacers last year in the playoffs. His offense can carry the team, and it will carry the team in several games this year as well. But Porter has to be number one because he's the facilitator. He's the guy that is if the offense isn't running through Antetokounmpo, Porter's going to be setting everything up. Like, he's going to be the pilot out there. And he's going to be the guy that tells everybody not only where they need to be, but getting them the ball in spots where they can be successful too. So I think he's got to be, especially we're in like the golden age of point guards in the NBA right now. And we're used to think of point guards as like these John Stockton, Jason Kidd facilitators, Steve Nash. And like now I feel like point guards, like there's so many of them that are scoring. Like it's such a scoring position. We have seen shooting guards transition into point guards basically because it's so important to not only to be able to set up your teammates, but really to fill it up from an offensive standpoint for scoring as well. So I think Porter is probably the most important out of those four for the Bucks' success this season.
Yeah, and I was thinking about when you were talking about like two guards taking more of like a facilitator role. Just thinking about like how many two guards have become lead ball handlers for their teams now. I mean, like you want to take it back like DeMar DeRozan with the Raptors, Donovan Mitchell with the Jazz and the Cavs at this point. Like there's so, I mean, I don't know how you want to classify Shea. He's played the two, he's played the one. Like
it's almost like it's like a new position almost.
Yeah. And I think Jim also said this, that basically 1 through 4 is positionless, but you can't be like positionless at center. I think it was his big thing. Or no, it was the other way. You can't be positionless at point guard, basically. Yeah. But like there's different ways to evaluate that. And I agree with how you put out your rankings. I think I basically had the same thing. Starting point guard outside of like the star player, if it's not the point guard, is like the most important position in the starting lineup. It's your starting pitcher for baseball, your quarterback for football, however you want to compare it to other sports. Like they set everything up and they also relied upon to be scorers because defenses have changed so much where you need a guy on the perimeter to penetrate the paint and either get a layup, a dunk, whatever, or find a way to distribute to shooters or someone in the dunker spot. There's just so many different responsibilities for a point guard in this NBA where, like we were talking about with the Jason Kidds, John Stocktons, that their main jobs was just to set up the offense and pass and like occasionally like have a catch and shoot three or maybe off the dribble three or something. But there's just so much more that point guards are relied upon to do.
And like, you brought up Mitchell. I think that's a good example. Jalen Brunson. I mean, that's a perfect example of like, I don't know really what he is anymore. I don't know if he's a point guard. I don't know if he's a shooting guard. All I know is that the offense in New York runs through him and he sets up his teammates too. Steph Curry. I mean, I would never think he is like a traditional point guard, but he kind of is a point guard on Golden State. Harden is another guy too that I think is this kind of weird quasi, is he a point guard? Is he a shooting guard? And even the guy from Minnesota, I'm forgetting his name.
Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards is another guy that I think he's a shooting guard, but he handles the ball as much as a point guard. So it's just like, you're right. I mean, it's positionless. It's either a new position or it's positionless as far as those go. And Kevin Porter's another guy too. Like I think he's a point guard, but he's going to score a lot this year too.
Yeah. So it should be interesting to see how all that shakes out. But we have to do positive and a little bit of negative here. What do you think the Bucks' greatest weakness is, and what do you think their greatest strength is heading into the 2025 season?
Maybe this is just lazy, but I'll say interior defense is probably their strength. And I'll say perimeter scoring is something that they need to figure out. And through the first 2 months, I'm sure Doc Rivers is going to play around with some stuff. Perhaps John Horst makes a deal to try to get a predominant scorer out there, and maybe you send Kuzma away, or I don't know. But I think that's the biggest question mark. We talked about this earlier. it's weird to have your 2 best players as your starting 4 and your starting 5. You need, especially in today's free-flowing NBA, you need somebody on the perimeter that is going to be a consistent threat, that can, fill up 25 or 30 points on a night when you need it. A guy that can facilitate offense to make sure that Turner and Antetokounmpo are being fed. A guy that can really give you stability in the backcourt where you can consistently count on that player. As it stands right now, maybe that guy is on the Bucks roster, but Jackson, I don't know who it is, and it's going to take some time before maybe even the Bucks know who it is, or even if they have that player. So to me, until they answer that question, that's got to be their biggest weakness. And we might be talking about this 2 weeks into the season about how badly the Bucks are being exposed on the perimeter because they don't have Middleton, they don't have Lillard, they don't have Drew Holiday. This is the first time in a long time that we're saying that. Even if you go back pre-Drew Holiday, Eric Bledsoe, I think, was more of a threat and more of an exciting player than what they have on this in this backcourt right now. I don't know. I don't honestly know how it's going to go. So maybe it's not the biggest weakness, but it's definitely the biggest question mark. It could be the biggest weakness as well.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this a lot in terms, just thinking about who they might be able to trade for if they wanted to add that extra punch. Before the extension, Trey Murphy was definitely a guy that was a potential option. I'm trying to think of like if they wanted to swap out point guards, like who's like a point guard on like a potential selling team that would ship him out that would actually fit the Bucks. And I just don't know if the player like that exists, because like most of the guys you would want are on teams that are going to be contending this year. Like the first guy I always think of is, and he doesn't necessarily fit it, at least defensively, it would be Trae Young. But the Hawks made all these moves. You bring in Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kristaps Porzingis, second-year Zachary Reese-Shea, Jalen Johnson. Like, those are all guys they're going to try and contend this year. Most of the bottom tier of the NBA doesn't have a point guard that kind of fits what the Bucks need that's at an all-star level. So I don't know if there is a move for a guy like that. I think that's something, yeah, Gary, that's something they're going to have to sort out. I don't know who, like you said, who it's going to be at the end of the day, but I think they might bring a slight advantage early on, because since they don't have that guy figured out, they can just ride who's hot. If Gary Trent's having a great game, go with him. Cole Anthony, Ryan Rollins. If any of those guys are having a great game, just roll with it. Like, that's the interesting flexibility of not having a entrenched starter. That's the glass half full portion of it. The glass half empty is you don't have an entrenched guy who you know what you're going to get from on a nightly basis.
It's like the Moneyball thing, right? We're going to recreate Damian Lillard in the aggregate with these 4 guys. And hopefully on a night-to-night basis, one of these guys gets hot and one of them can help. I think that's the plan right now. And hopefully one of these players steps up on, while they're playing, kind of like, okay, tonight's a Porter game. It's good. We got an AJ Green game tonight. We needed that. But until one of these guys can do it consistently, and I think the best shot is probably Gary Trent, but he's already shown how inconsistent he can be. Until then, that's why it's so important with Antetokounmpo to be touching the ball every single possession as much as he can, because they have to somehow mask that weakness until somebody shows that, hey, we can turn this into a strength on this team.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot to sort out, and it's going to take probably quite a bit to figure out. Or not. Maybe it'll be really quick, and they'll fire on all cylinders, and they'll start like 7-2. Who knows?
That'd be great. I don't see it happening, but that'd be great.
We'll see. This is always like my favorite question to ask, just because of the context behind it, or maybe not the context, but the setup for it. Like, what do you hope to see from the Bucks during the regular season to kind of like make it worth it to watch a game? Like, the old example was like a Tuesday night game in February against like the Pistons, and now we it's kind of a joke around Brew Hoop. It's like, okay, now that's what would make worth watching a Washington Wizards game on a Wednesday night in like February when it's cold.
Well, number one, a win. like that. If you're playing the Wizards, so you got to come away with the win, right? I feel like NBA teams in general, and this is definitely true with the Bucks, they're at their best when they're playing exciting up and down basketball. When they're playing that type of basketball, they're fun to watch and they're going to be successful. So I think for me to answer that question, it's like if I'm tuning in, I want to see the opposing team not getting shots up until the last 10 seconds of the shot clock consistently. I want to see the Bucks playing inside out, establishing Antetokounmpo and Turner on the box and inside, and I want to see AJ Green and Gary Trent knocking down threes, and I want to see Kevin Porter slashing to the rim. I think that all those things combined gives you hope for the postseason. Like the journey is kind of the reward. We say this in baseball all the time too, especially with the Brewers this year. It's just like, well, if they don't win the World Series, what does the 1 seed mean? What does 97 wins mean? Well, it meant like it was a pretty special 6 months. And I think that's what I want to see with the Bucks. They don't have to win 50 games, but if they're threatening to win 50 games and we used to take the division for granted as Bucks fans, and now you can't anymore. You have the Pistons there. You have Cleveland, who has a stranglehold on it. I think making a run at the division, like just being relevant and not hearing Antetokounmpo is not happy. Where's he going to go? Where's he going to be traded to? Not hearing that on a nightly basis would also make me much more likely to tune in to Bucks games, because it means they're playing well and it means they're fun to watch. And if Antetokounmpo is having fun, then we should be having fun as well. So I think it's kind of like a wide scope answer on, like, as long as they're playing exciting basketball, yeah, I'm going to watch them. How often do we have a unicorn come into a league like Antetokounmpo, where you get a chance to watch him play for whoever? We get a chance to watch him in a Bucks uniform, and he's 30 years old. The majority, at least I think, I don't know, the majority of his basketball in Milwaukee is behind us. So soak it up, treasure it as much as you can. You just never know when it ends. And I think that the big feta is reason enough for us to tune in, night out, and enjoy some Bucks basketball.
Yeah, that is something that because I've basically I was there for the first round loss to Indy. That was my first season. But like, I've been pleading them to like just move the ball around and don't let it stick. Even when they had Dame, that they were at their best when the ball was skipping around the court and they would find Dame for an open three. They find Gary Trent or Malik Beasley open for a three, or finding Giannis or Brook Lopez down low, or finding Chris Middleton for an open, cut to the basket. That's when basketball, for almost any team, but especially the Bucks, especially the guys they have this year who are young, athletic. I mean, Giannis and Myles and Thanasis are the elder statesmen of this team. So they're going to be running a lot. I don't think they're catching a team like the Bulls necessarily for terms of pace of play, but they should be at least league average, if not above league average in terms of pace. So
something that we haven't said in years,
Exactly. And it worked and it didn't work. They were winning games, they were winning the conference, they're winning the division, but it just wasn't translating to the playoffs. And especially the last couple of years against Indy, where they were just getting run out of the gym because they were so slow. They had the oldest team in the league that first year, and they were trotting out Patrick Beverley trying to guard TJ McConnell. Right, yeah. Not the most ideal setup.
I think that part of the same things that scare me about this team this year also get me excited for what it could be. Antetokounmpo, I think, kind of alluded to this at Media Day when he was talking about how excited he is about this group of guys, how dangerous this team could be this year. I feel like now, even though you have Antetokounmpo, you have the ability to sneak up on teams because, in the Eastern Conference, people are talking about the Knicks. They're talking about the Cavs. They're talking about the Magic and the Pistons, all these other teams that are now have essentially surpassed the Bucks. And now you have the opportunity to sneak up on people, and something that you didn't have before. But part of the reason you have that opportunity is because nobody knows what the hell you have in the backcourt, and nobody knows how Turner and Antetokounmpo are going to gel being the top two scoring options on this team. So there's a lot to be concerned about as it stands right now. Expectations, I think, have been lowered too. At least they have been for me. I don't know about other Bucks fans, but I don't expect an NBA title this year. If it happens, great. I mean, you have the best player in the world on your team, so certainly you are a threat once you get into the playoffs. But just getting to the conference semis, I think, would be nice this year. That may not be enough. I'm sure John Horst wants to get back to the finals, and doing what he can under the restraints that he has from a roster building standpoint. I think he's done a significantly good job this offseason. I know a lot of people would disagree with that, but I think that there's hope, there's optimism, but there also is the realistic viewpoint that this might be a flawed team, and until they get out there and start competing against the other teams in the NBA, we won't know, and we probably won't know until January, quite frankly, and maybe even then we won't know. But it is exciting, it's fun. There's a lot of stuff with this team this year that we haven't had to face or enjoy or got to enjoy over the last half decade.
Yeah, and I think there is hope for and we've been talking about this. For me, the main goal, honestly, of this year, if nothing else, just get out of the first round.
Yes.
Even if you get swept in the second round by Cleveland, New York, whoever you would play in that Orlando, even if you get swept by them, just get out of the first round. That, I think, is just a monkey they're going to have to get off their backs, especially if, let's say, things go exceptionally well and the Bucks are a 3 seed or heck, even a 2 seed, and somehow Indiana sneaks into the play-in and is the 7 seed. Especially if something like that happens, that's going to be the number one thing they have to get. And I think and we'll get into this in a second, their ceiling for me, I think, is conference finals. I think, again, especially if they match up with the Knicks, especially how things went last year, I think that's a 5-game series, 6 games at best against the Knicks. I know it's a different team, but they just did not look against the Knicks at all last year.
I think you're right. However, if Porter does keep up the level of play that we saw from him last year, and one of these, maybe Trent becomes more of a consistent player, and Kuzma gets closer to baseline, and I know I'm saying if, and that's why it's difficult, right? Because a lot of things have to go right. But if all those things happen, there's definitely a possibility that they could cut down the nets. But that's with a lot of stuff going right. And they probably need at least one more piece, maybe just one more piece that's not on the roster right now if you're going to win the NBA Finals this year. Because I think the deck is stacked against you. I just checked. They have the 8th best odds of winning the Eastern Conference. So there is a lot of teams in front of them that have a better shot. And granted, it's betting, and I know it's a little bit different. But Cleveland, New York, Orlando, Atlanta, Boston, Detroit, and Philly all have better odds than the
Philly.
And again, this is why I bring this up, because it's betting. I'm sure there's people in Philadelphia that want to bet on the Sixers, which obviously drives those odds to be shorter. The Sixers are plus 1,200 to win the East right now. I'm going off of FanDuel Sportsbook, by the way. Sixers are plus 1,200 to win. The Bucks are plus 1,900, but then the next closest team is the Pacers at plus 3,500. So there's a pretty significant drop off after the Bucks. The Pistons have the same odds as the Sixers. Hawks and Celtics 900 and plus 1,000 for them. And then you get into the shortest odds. Orlando 600, the Knicks 370, and then the Cavs are the favorites at plus 210 right now.
Yeah, the top 5 makes sense. Like I would give the Pistons, the Magic, the Knicks, and the Cavs a better shake at making it out of the Eastern Conference, and the Bucks, at least right now as it currently sits. But Philly, that
Yeah, I
bothers
mean,
me so much. Like they're such a wild card team because
did we hear this last year? I mean, we heard like Philadelphia was going to be this this great team last year, and
yeah.
they couldn't have started off any worse, and quite frankly, it didn't get all that great for them. I don't even know where they finished last year, quite frankly, but I know it wasn't high.
It was, yeah. Because I mean, they ended up with a 3rd pick. They got Ace
Right.
Bailey. So like, but I know they didn't finish as the 3rd worst team in basketball. But yeah, that bothers me. That bothers me so much. I want to ask you this before I get to my actual like last like Bucks related question. Just like with kind of where we say at like the end of the roster, like with an Amir Coffey, Ajax, Tyler Smith, Chris Livingston, like if the Bucks wanted to add Amir Coffey, they have to cut 2 guys. Like, who do you think gets like those last 2 roster spots?
I think Livingston has shown enough over the course of the last year and even preseason this year that there's an intriguing skill set there, right? So I think he's pretty safe. God, I don't. Tyler Smith is a guy that maybe it's because I had unfair expectations with him last year. He's only 20 years old, and he could develop into a relevant rotational big man. I guess I forget that he is still super young. Probably should have stayed in college longer, but that's a different conversation. I don't. He's too intriguing to let go. I don't know. This is tough. And then is Coffey worth it? That you'd want to part with 2 players off that roster to make sure you have. I mean, I don't know. These are questions that we don't often talk about, and I'm sure it's stuff that John Horst loses sleep about, where you're trying to, you don't want to cut that player or release that player or trade that player, and then all of a sudden, he finds success somewhere else, and Horst is like, God, why couldn't we have brought that out in him, or why did I trade him, or why did I release him? When this could have been the type of player that could have been great next to a Antetokounmpo. So I don't know. I don't have a real good feeling on it. And for me, I tend to look at things positively as much as I can. I think that's just the best way to live life. So and like fantasy football too. Like I'm big, and obviously that's a big part of my work life as well. People always ask me, well, who's a bust and who do I not want to draft this year? And it's always tough for me because I can tell myself a story where these guys are successful, right? And I know, like, when you look at the back end of the roster, my brain is telling me these guys more than likely are going to be misses ultimately when it comes to being successful players in the NBA. But I'm telling myself a story. When I'm talking about Tyler Smith, got that potential. He's super young. I've seen it with Livingston. He's doing some stuff right now that I think would be very, very intriguing once he gets his some more experience under his belt. The reality is that more than likely those guys are never going to pan out, and that's how life works too. That's how the NBA life in the NBA works. So I don't know. As far as those last 2 spots on the roster, God, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at it from a simple point, like they could simply just figure this out and not bring Coffey on, and then they could just not guarantee the rest of Ajax's contract, and they're already set with 15 guys.
Yeah,
that's pretty cut and dry. And I think, unfortunately, Ajax's time in Milwaukee is done, and that really stings because not only I got to see him play in college at UConn because I went to Marquette, but the Bucks traded up in the 2nd round to get him in the first place. So that makes it sting a little bit more.
I'll say this, and sorry to interrupt. I'll just say this about Jackson. I like that pick originally. I thought this is a guy that played on a national championship team, kind of ran the floor for him. Like he was the general out there. And you think about what he could do from a point guard aspect, not only setting up his teammates, but how athletic he was, what a good rebounder he was. the defensive mentality. He was a big body that moved really swiftly on the floor. And to me, it's like, what was the big drawback when they drafted him? Well, he can't shoot, or we don't know if he can shoot. Like, well, not saying that I'm not going to compare him to Michael Redd, but Michael Redd was the guy that did all this stuff in Ohio State, and he couldn't shoot, but he turned into one of the greatest shooters, if not the greatest shooter in Bucks history. So I was like that. I just felt like that was something you would, if you're in the gym enough and you're practicing enough, eventually you're going to be able to shoot the basketball and shoot it with accuracy, shoot it with consistency from the 3-point line. And of course, I also said that about with Antetokounmpo and free throws, and that hasn't really worked out. So I don't know. The Jackson thing, like, it's frustrating because you see him do things that other players in the league, with his size and his athleticism is so exciting, and it stinks that just hasn't translated into NBA success. But I think you're right. I mean, he's a man without a country. He's like Ben Simmons light, right? He does all this intriguing stuff, but ultimately, does he make your team better? Does he help you win games? And the answer to Ajax so far has just been no.
Yeah, well, at least for him, we'll always have his performance in the NBA Cup final we can hold on to. All right, now to my actual last couple Bucks related questions that I have here. Just conference finish and playoff predictions for this year's Bucks team.
All right, conference finish. Let's say the I'll say the 6th seed. Although it's weird because I feel like they're probably not going to get the 6. They're probably more likely to get the 3 or like the 9, rather than the 6. Because I don't. Maybe it is the 6. I don't know. I just I'll say the 6. That they finished 6th in the Eastern Conference. I'm going to wish cast this and say they get to the conference semifinals. Although, it wouldn't, history would say that they probably are going to be out in the first round. I'll say they get to the conference semis, but I think that's where the season ends this year. I have too many questions about this team at this moment in time to say that they're going to, go to the conference finals or the NBA finals. I think it's possible, but it's much more likely that they either go out in the first round or win one series and then be done. So I think that's where it ends for them is when we get down to 8. I think they'll make it to the last 8 teams alive in the NBA, but I don't think they go any further.
Who are the 5 teams you have ahead of them with the Bucks at the 6th seed?
Let's go with New York, Cleveland, Orlando, Atlanta, and I guess probably Detroit. Maybe they get the 5 seed. I don't know. I guess the Pistons have arrived. So I'll put Detroit in front of Milwaukee. Although I think it'll be close.
Yeah, it'll be like it was with the Bucks and Pacers this past year, where it was like, I think it was like 1 or 2 games that separated them, something like that. I think I had the Bucks as 6 seed too. I think that's where I put it, or maybe I said 4. Maybe I did. Oh yeah, I said 4 because I had
Jackson. I'm gonna tell you right now, anywhere between 3 and 9 would not surprise me with this team right now. Like, it would not. I could see them getting hot and playing up to the 3 seed. I could also see them just being a flawed team that just does not. The pieces don't fit right, and they drop down to the 9, which is wild to say, considering, again, as I bring it up a second time, they have the best player on the planet. They should not be that bad, but it's all within the realm of possibility because this is the least sure I am about a Bucks team going into the season that I have been probably since pre-Eric Bledsoe. I just don't know how good or how bad they're going to be this year because there's been some pretty significant changes to the roster.
Yeah. And I do have to say, I appreciate you not saying that it fall to the 10 because there's only one team that deserves the 10 seed in the East, and that's the Chicago Bulls. That is their spot forever. we'll be 15 years into the future, and we'll be like, the Bulls with their 15th straight 10th seed appearance in the NBA play-in tournament.
It'll be one of the traditions that we celebrate in the NBA every single year with crowning a champion, crowning an NBA Cup champion. And it's like on College Game Day. I don't know if you watch College Game Day for ESPN. Yeah. They always fly that Washington State, the old crimson flag. That's like the Bulls getting the 10 seed in the play-in tournament. That's like the old crimson. That's of the NBA that they have right now.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Last Bucks question. What do you think they must do to win a championship?
God, if only they could trade for Damian Lillard. No, I think, and I know he hasn't played yet this season with the Antetokounmpo. We've never seen it before. It's hard for me to see them winning a title without a dominant perimeter player that can be that facilitator, that can be that closer at the end of games. And I feel like, this Turner Antetokounmpo thing is fun, but I wonder how much, I wonder if it has legs. And I wonder if we see like the problem on the perimeter for Milwaukee, and you facilitate some sort of trade with Turner being the big piece that goes out, and you bring in more of a yin and yang type thing with a Antetokounmpo and a perimeter player, similar to what they had with Middleton and him, similar to what they had with Lillard and him. Like I wonder if that might be the thing that they need to win a championship. But without me seeing how the medium four, as we'll call it, with Porter, with Green, with Trent, with Kuzma, without me seeing how this kind of plays out, at least through the first couple months of the season, I can't unequivocally say that Turner needs to be traded and they need to get some sort of perimeter player in. And I'm not calling for that either. Mm-hmm. It's just weird for me to say, yeah, I think the Bucks, they'll be able to do it with Turner and Antetokounmpo as their top two players. I don't know. I don't know if that's, when's the last time that was done? San Antonio, right? With Robinson and Duncan, probably. And that took a special coach. It took a special unit. And I'm not sure, the Bucks have a Tony Parker or Manu Ginobili or Bruce Bowen or, any of those guys on this. So I guess it can be done. I remain skeptical.
Yeah. It's so hard to see if what they're going to be able to do. I guess the main guy, at least that everyone's been floating around that might be traded that would fit that big. I don't know if he's a dominant wing, but he's a big one at least, is Lauri Markkanen on the Jazz. Let's see. I'm just trying to see because I was testing out in a trade simulator. Yeah, the problem is he makes $46 million. And with where the Bucks are right now, they'd have to match that in some manner of speaking. And they it's Giannis, Myles, Bobby, and then nobody else makes 7 figures, or 8 figures. Everyone else is under $10 million. So I don't think that would happen. It would maybe constitute something else, but yeah, there's just not a lot of guys out there for that, and we'll see what they do.
I think your flexibility for roster management opens up more after this season, with draft picks and salaries lining up a little bit better to be more mobile on the team, and if that's the case, then maybe we see something happen where they add this perimeter player to complete the big three with Turner, Antetokounmpo, and then whoever X player is, and then Porter can go back to being more of a role player, and Trent, the pressure comes off these guys if they're still on the roster at that point. But I think that, so you have the gap year essentially this year, is that as long as they're competitive this year and maybe win a playoff series, we'll all feel really good about this team going forward, because then I think there would be a significant move or moves coming after this year to get them back where they are a legitimate NBA Finals contender.
Yeah, and I think because at least for this year, if they wanted to trade their draft picks, I think they have 2031 completely unprotected, and then they could throw in 2032 as a pick swap. And then the nice thing is, I believe after the draft, they could have 2032 and 2033 as a pick swap, which by that point Giannis will be 38 years old or whatever. So like that would be an extremely valuable pick, even if he's even in the league at that point. So there are ways to maximize, especially like you said, this upcoming offseason, I think would be the year to make that jump.
Yeah. It'll be, I mean, I'm all for, sometimes, you know, I love watching the Bucks. I love following the Bucks, but sometimes the off season and wish casting about, you know, roster changes and coaching changes, that can be a little bit more fun. Sometimes not fun. But I'm excited to see, I'm really excited to see how this particular unit that John Horst put together, I'm excited to see how well they gel, whether the chemistry's there this season. And certainly my expectations for the first time in a long time is not NBA Finals championship. Like that's the level of success. I don't think that they need to go that deep in order for it to be a successful season. I think in many ways, if they do end up losing in the conference semis, I think there's gonna be a lot of Bucks fans that say, hey, this was kind of a success based on, you know, the menu of players we had at the disposal here for Doc Rivers and John Horst. And now we can raise those expectations because we had a successful year this past year, and now this roster is getting better again for the future.
Yeah, so it'll be some. I think I'm excited too for that. I think that's the end of the story with that. It's a very interesting mix of players and roster construction. We are 10 days away from seeing how all that plays out. So before we get out of here, we've sprinkled it out throughout our conversation today, and it's our miscellaneous segment time. And so for you, thanks to Van for actually coming up with the name, because my name that I came up with was terrible.
And I couldn't come up with anything either. So yours was better than mine because I couldn't come up with anything.
So we have Balky's Beard of Fantasy Football Wisdom. For those who don't know, kind of like, what do you do in terms of like fantasy football, and like maybe kind of tell us where your fantasy football team or teams are at.
I work for a, can I say the name of the company that I work for?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, cool. I work for a national fantasy football contest operator. It's called the Fantasy Football Players Championship. The website is myffpc.com. I've worked there for, almost 2 decades now. And it's a season-long contest operator. We do offer some weekly games there as well. But we have 2 separate tournaments featuring $1 million grand prize. We also have some best ball tournaments on there featuring 6-figure grand prizes. We have a postseason tournament as well, a couple of postseason tournaments that have 6-figure grand prizes. So basically, I've worked for them doing whatever they've needed, customer service. I facilitate online drafts. I facilitate hybrid drafts at our live events out in Las Vegas every year. And then also I have 3 separate fantasy football shows that are sponsored by the FFPC. And they're all year-round shows. Tuesday nights, I have a show called the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, where I invite a high-stakes FFPC player on to kind of chop it up, talk about what's going on, whether it's off-season or in-season. There's always stuff to be talking about. Thursday nights, I have a show from 7 to 9 on the Better Sports Network called FFPC Insider Access, where I have a pundit in the fantasy football industry hang out with me for 2 hours and we chop it up. And then, of course, the podcast I've been doing that one on Thursday I've been doing for 4 years. The one on Tuesday I've been doing for, I think, like 10. And then this one, my main show, Friday nights at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern, whatever, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. We bring on an FFPC player who has won $1 million or threatening to win $1 million. Some of the more successful players, because there's a ton of fantasy football podcasts out there, but almost none of them feature these high stakes players that are ponying up 300, 500, 1,000, 2,000, some cases tens of thousands of dollars of their own money to try to win. And so that was the whole gist of this show, is like, hey, let's expose these players. Let's bring them on to tell them, what they're doing. And I have a lot of respect for fantasy football analysts out there. But it's different when the stakes are hundreds and thousands of dollars rather than competing against 9 people in an office league. So, and I do that show year round as well. And that's at 9 o'clock on Fridays. And all of those are sponsored by the FFPC. So that's sort of like my second job. I have 3. We talked about the fun job. The second job is the FFPC. The third job is working for the radio station, The Score, in Appleton here. And then I also do digital marketing digital marketing and customer service for an e-commerce company. That's my main job. So there you go. You have the whole breadth of everything, but that's basically, as far as the fantasy football stuff goes, now you know what I do for there.
Okay, very cool. Wow, that's a lot, and that's really cool that you've been able to do it for that long. That's really cool.
It's like, the company I work for is awesome. There's a lot of turnover, obviously, in the fantasy football industry, because there isn't, when you're doing it for a living, it's tough to make a living off of it. Like, I think most people do it as like secondary gigs or whatever. But if you find somebody who that's like their only job, they're good at it because it's tough to support yourself just doing fantasy football for a living, unless you're one of the GOATs out there. And there are several. Yeah.
So part of the name of the title for this is for Fantasy Football Wisdom. Put on your fantasy analyst cap, because sure. I'm in a fantasy league with 13 other people. It's a 14-person league. And it's dynasty with keepers. I mean, it's 4 keepers. So I just pulled off this trade because I'm 5-0 right now. And I'm like, you know what? Let's make a splash. Let's do something big. And obviously with having a league like this, the depth options are limited. Like, my wide receiver 1 is Puka Nacua. He's been awesome. Loving that all year. Wide receiver 2 has been a mix of Khalil Shakir, Calvin Austin, Hollywood Brown for a couple of weeks. I think in 1 week I had Tyquan Thornton. So it's just kind of been a merry-go-round there. So like, I need someone.
How many receivers do you have to start every week in this? Jackson?
Two have to be receivers, and then there's 2 like super flexes, receiver, running back, tight end. So what I was curious about is the trade I pulled off. I got Garrett Wilson, and I got a 3rd-round pick for next season. And I gave up Calvin Austin, my 1st-round pick, a 5th, and a 3rd in 2027.
Okay. So number one, the best part of this deal that I like for you is you got the best player in it. In Garrett Wilson. Anytime I make trades, I always want to. It's fine if we do multiple players in the deal, but I want to be getting the best player. I don't like being the guy that's trading the one player for 3 others, because it usually doesn't work out. Now, in a 14-team league, I think you can modify that a little bit, where sometimes getting the 3 players is actually better than giving up the 1 player, because you need that depth. You talked about Shakir and Tyquan Thornton, Calvin Austin, and these guys that you've been kind of rotating in as your second receiver. This is a keeper league. So essentially a 1st-round pick in 2027 is really like a 4th-round pick, right?
Or it's a 1st-rounder in 26.
Okay, 1st-rounder in 2020, 1st-rounder in 2026. Okay, so and you keep 4 players?
Yes.
Okay, so that's really like a 5th-round pick, right?
I think that I have never done a keeper league before, or a dynasty league. So
I'm just telling you, if if everybody keeps 4 players, right,
Mhm.
in this league from year to
Oh,
year,
so it's like a 5th round pick. Yeah. Okay. I see what
Yeah.
you're saying.
so there's basically like 4 rounds that are gone when you start the draft. So really, I mean, to me, you get Garrett Wilson for as long as you want him. He's not old. With the exception of this year, he's put up great numbers every single year. And I feel like the Jets eventually are they're gonna fix this quarterback thing eventually. And even if they don't, Wilson's been really good, even with subpar quarterback play too. So the fact that you have him in next to Nakua in a 14-teamer, giving up, Calvin Austin, with no offense, I don't think he matters much. And I know he's been living in the end zone. And I think he's hurt right now, isn't he? I want to say he's hurt.
I believe so. Yeah.
And then these other picks that are just kind of like, they're first round pick that seems significant. It's really not when you're talking about the top 56 players already off the board. I like this deal for you. I think that this is going to work out nicely. These guys got to stay healthy, obviously, because you'd be hurting a little bit for depth. But I would have rather had the side that you got in this deal rather than what you gave up.
Yeah, and the nice thing is too is I still have Shakir as that third wide receiver,
Right.
and then I have Dallas Goedert this year, who's been great as a tight end. And I was just thinking about like who to keep. I'd probably, because I got James Cook, I have Nakua, so that'd be my 2 for sure, and then probably Garrett Wilson, then probably Camp Scadabo at this point be my other keeper, lockdown running back and receiver.
It's in a keeper league too, where you're keeping 4 players. Normally, even if you're not doing that, the emphasis is always, I had a high stakes player tell me this years ago, and it's always rung true when we talk about trades and dynasty and everything. Elite talent over everything else. Just get the elite talent. There's another podcast I listen to, a couple of dynasty guys, and they always say, if you have 4 top 30 players, which I know in a 14-teamer it's very difficult to do, but it's not impossible to do in a 12-team league. If you have 4 top 30 players, you should be contending, regardless of what the rest of your team looks like. You should be contending for a title, right? And Garrett Wilson, to me, is an automatic keeper for you. You've definitely upgraded there. And then whatever happens after that. But to me, giving up what you did for a guy that you can keep for multiple years here, this is a good deal.
Oh, I feel so much better about that. Like I said, I've never done a dynasty league before, so
I'll tell you this too. Just because I like it doesn't mean like that's the way it's going to play out. Like I could easily be wrong on this, but yeah, I would have done that deal if it were me for sure.
All right, awesome. Well, Eric, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Thank you so much for being on Dear Diaries. For people who are not in the Appleton and Oshkosh area, where can they listen to your radio show on The Score?
We have an app in the App Store and Google Play. Just search The Score WI, The Score Wisconsin, essentially. But you can also listen to it on a ton of other apps like TuneIn Radio, Simple Radio, as far as apps go. And then, of course, we always have a stream going on live at our website, which is thescorewi.com. You can always listen to it there. And I podcast all my shows. So if you are more the podcast listener and you just want to listen at your leisure, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, it's just called The Show with Balky. You search that or just search my name, and all the shows I do will pop up on there too.
All right. Well, again, Eric, thank you so much. Appreciate having you on. We'll make sure to stay in touch, and should be an exciting season of not only Bucks basketball, but some fantasy football too.
Yes, exactly. Thanks for having me, Jackson.